Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Ryedale series, 115 parishes covering a huge area of North Yorkshire between York and Scarborough. It's a beautiful area, so let's have a look at it. Hello folks, we're continuing our journey through Ryedale today, and today we come to a place which has got a common name. We've seen plenty of villages with this name before, however there's a bit on the end of this one, so it's a little bit different. This is the parish of Thornton le Clay. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Thornton le Clay, Thorn bush village in the Clay. Round 6 in Ryedale sees us tackle the village of Thornton le Clay, and that's an interesting name, isn't it? I alluded briefly last week to the suffix le Clay, which was once shared with neighbouring Foston. Le Clay is a French term, and usually anything along those lines is found in Lincolnshire. Mind you, here in Yorkshire, it has the exact same meaning. It simply means in the clay, in the same way as villages we've covered before do. One such example is Draycott in the Clay in Staffordshire. It's a reference to the soils around the area, as both Thornton and Foston lie on a predominantly clay-like surface. And Thornton, well, that simply means thorn bushes. Aside from their name, Thornton and Foston have shared their existence for several centuries, and they are still considered one community today. Indeed, a couple of Foston landmarks actually fall within Thornton's boundaries, namely the school and the old rectory, the latter of which was designed by the rhyming salad dressing writer Sydney Smith. The two villages share the church in Foston and also the village hall here in Thornton. Much like Foston, Thornton is very residential, but it still boasts a Methodist chapel and one pub. There used to be two, but that's no longer the case despite a campaign to save its counterpart. Let's go walking. We start on the border between Foston and Thornton. First up is Foston Primary School, which is actually in Thornton. Foston Primary School was built in 1844, but as you can probably tell, it's been much improved and extended since then. Children here are taught in one of 4 classes. Heading west, we're walking along what is the end of Partridge Hill, the main route from Foston. Aside from that, Thornton is basically made up of 2 mainly residential roads which converge on each other close to the school. These are High Street to the north and Low Street to the south. On the corner where they meet is an old forge, which gives us an insight into the way things once were. More on that in a bit. Let's head around the corner onto Low Street. If you look directly ahead, note the parking spaces on the left. These are for the village hall, which is shared between Foston and Thornton. This has always been the heart of the community. Its purpose was, and remains so today, to provide the locals with a space for leisure and recreation. It was way back in August 1930 when the hall's trustees purchased the piece of land on which this stands for the princely sum of £10. Bargain. Now, a couple of years ago, I'd have been talking about a pub at this point. However, it's now closed. It was sited next to the village hall and it went by the name of the White Swan. The locals just knew it as the Swan. The 300-year-old property closed in March 2020 when its lease expired and the owners later sought to change its use into a house, believing a pub was no longer viable. This didn't please the locals, and if you walk around Thornton, you will still see plenty of signs around that say "Save our Swan." It was a campaign designed to give the village the right to buy the venue. Now, if you were to keep following Low Street, it would take you out of the village and towards Flaxton, which is next week's episode, by the way. But we need to check out the High Street, and to get to that from here, you can use a footpath. If you look here where the road bends, you can see a tree just there. There's a path just beyond that tree. We're going to go up that path. It will take us to the High Street, and that'll form a neat little loop around Thornton le Clay. It turns out the path is actually before the tree, but it's only a few feet away from where I was talking about. The path, which was quite boggy underfoot, follows a shallow incline at first before flattening out, revealing this view of the village to the south. This paddock seemed very earthworky, although Historic England has no listing for it. Perhaps it's never been explored. I reckon it may be possible that it was used by the monastic grange at Foston, given the size that once was. Whatever the case, we're now about to hit the High Street, Thornton's second road. The High Street was the road around which Thornton developed. In times past, this was a turnpike, believe it or not. Both this and Low Street would have been unmade tracks, dusty in the summer and muddy in the winter. Horses would have been the main traffic. It's a little different these days. The High Street's largest landmark is a former Wesleyan chapel, which is still used today. Methodism here goes back to 1813, when a small society of 8 members were formed. In 1822, the land this chapel stands on was bought from a Mr. Lund of Flaxton, and the building was erected for £200. Now, at this point, imagine yourself standing here just after the end of World War I. Even though that's only just over a century ago, the scene would be incomprehensible compared to now. Industry would have been thriving. Horses would be hauling wagons laden with tree trunks to be sawn at a woodyard next to the old forge, or pulling drays to and from an old brewery near the Low Street junction. If you were very lucky, you might even have seen Rudyard Kipling, thanks to his 2 aunts being residents of the village. What an interesting place. Let's mark it off by way of a TVI card. That's our last task. Okay, we are around the parish of Thornton le Clay. Lovely little place this, and obviously with the sky being a brilliant blue at the moment, not really a cloud up there, it really does bring out the best in a place like this, doesn't it? It's fantastic. You can see why Yorkshire is one of the most sought after places to live in this country. If you don't live up here, well, maybe you should. Now, the White Swan may have seemingly gone, but Thornton can lay claim to a second pub, even if it is located way out of the village. This is Moor Lane, which is a continuation of Low Street, and it eventually leads to Rice Lane and then Flaxton by way of a level crossing. Where the 2 roads meet is the second pub, and it's called the Thompson's Arms. Erected in 1840, it was originally a farm before becoming a coaching inn in 1890. It still bills itself as a hotel today. Since 1935, it's been owned and run by the Calder family. If you turn left onto Rice Lane and past the pub, you then cross the railway. Say hello once again to the York to Scarborough line, last seen on this channel at nearby Barton le Willows. We will be seeing this again very soon too. For now though, it's over the line and off into Flaxton, one of the biggest villages in the immediate area. Get ready for a huge village green, another pub, and a historic well, amongst other things. See you back here very soon. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.